2008 and life coaching since 2012. Once he received his master's in mental health and psychology and has really just taken that and run with it. Good afternoon, Chappy.
Hey, good afternoon, William.
How you doing today, bro?
I'm doing great. It's a good day.
Yeah, man, and I'm so happy to be here. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's taken us a little bit to get here. So thank you for your patience with me.
Oh, no worries.
But I'm excited to kind of really tell your story, how God's worked in your life, but also just how you've just decided, hey, I'm going to approach some things differently, and bring that to the table and let the cards lie and the success that you've had. But before we get into any of that, really, I think we got to start at the beginning. But is there anything you want to kick off before we get into all this? Or
I just want to say thank you for allowing me this opportunity. So I'm glad to be here.
Man, it's my pleasure. It is definitely my pleasure. Just so everybody knows, this is actually my third time recording. So just give me some grace. Give both of us some grace today on this conversation. But hey, so let's jump right into this, man. So let's start at the beginning. Where did Chappy grow up? You know, what was life at home, school, stuff like that?
I grew up in Roswell, which is just outside of Atlanta. I lived there until my 9th grade year, and then I moved to Tuscaloosa, and I finished out my high school years in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Played numerous sports, then came to Auburn, went to school at the university, and then moved back to Atlanta because I didn't do well academically, and then I moved back to Auburn to finish up.
Nice. So, mom, dad, what'd they do?
So my parents are divorced. They got divorced in '85. My mom currently lives in Tampa, Florida. My dad lives in Stone Mountain, Georgia.
Nice, man. God, you get the best of both worlds there. You get to get down, you can see the coast when you see mom,
Right.
and then take the kids to see grandma.
Right.
But then also you get to get a little bit of a mountain if you kind of get into the Stone Mountain area in Georgia. And I know the Stone Mountain is also the big monument that's there.
Right. Exactly.
But cool. But so you played a lot of sports when you were in high school and younger?
I did. I swam competitively. I played football. I ran track, which was my best sport. I also played basketball 1 year and soccer. I was a multi-sport athlete.
Nice. Which one was your favorite?
Football was my favorite, but it was the one my mom wanted me to play the least. The potential for risk injury.
Yeah.
I was best at track though.
Yeah, really. So what was your
My event?
your event, I guess. Yeah.
I started off as a miler and 2-miler and was very average, and then I changed to the 200 and the 400 meter, and I really excelled at that.
That 400 meter, that's a hard one, man, because I don't like it when I have to run those.
The 400 is grueling. The 800 was the worst to me, but the 400 was pretty grueling. But I went from finishing in the middle of the pack and to constantly finishing in the top 3 in track.
Nice, that's awesome. And so growing up, so you grew up, in late 80s, early 90s, correct? Because I think you're about my age, aren't you?
Correct, I'm 43.
Yeah, so you're in your 40s, so that's awesome, man. What was that like for you making that transition? How was that for you? Having to kind of do that, but then you also said that you had a break in high school or something like that. You went to Tuscaloosa and then went back.
Right. It was a big culture change. Living in Roswell, growing up in Roswell, which I grew up middle upper class in Roswell, and then moved to Tuscaloosa, and it was very much lower class. I was experiencing things that I had never really been exposed to when I was in Roswell. I was getting in fights in the streets, just like walking home. I had people that would just try to take my stuff. I never really experienced any of that. One time I had a gun pulled on me, never experienced that before. So it was a culture change in a way from a socioeconomic standpoint that shifted my mindset, but also gave me experience in living with different types of people and different groups of people that I appreciate this day.
Yeah, I can imagine, man. How has that impacted you even now, man? Compared to from where you experiencing that, and you said socioeconomic, so obviously you were definitely, I don't want to say poverty, but you were living in a place in a time when you didn't have what you used to have.
Right.
But how has that helped you kind of get to where you're at now, and what's that kind of story? Because that's really, I think, what is going to be part of what we learn today about you, which is going to be awesome.
One aspect is that I know what it's like to be in a position of want and not be able to have access. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to ever put myself in that position again. Also created a lot of resilience in building, I guess, as people very much say, is like character-wise, just finding ways to make things happen even though they may not happen for you as easily. So just building that resilience, perseverance, and changing your outcome and not letting your environment dictate your outcome.
So a minute ago you were talking about how you were in Tuscaloosa, and so your high school, graduate, go to college, realize, hey, this college isn't for me, got to make a change. And where did you go to college first at?
Auburn.
And
Correct.
then, so
And then-
let's hear, what was that story? What was that like? What's going on here and that progression for you?
So I came to Auburn, graduated high school in Tuscaloosa. I moved in with my dad to Stone Mountain for that summer and then came to Auburn that fall. I was in Auburn for about a year and a half, and academically I was not doing well. I was constantly a person who did not really have to study in high school, so I kind of got through with my grades. When I came to Auburn, I didn't have the discipline necessarily to study the things I needed to study. I always went to class, I never skipped class, so I did have the discipline to get up and make my classes. But instead of studying, I was oftentimes either lifting weights or shooting basketball. And so I met a lot of friends that way. I met a lot of people on the court, a lot of people I still keep in touch with today. But that actually costed me some time as it relates to my academic journey. Moved back to Atlanta, worked for DHL, loading the airplanes out at the Atlanta airport. Did that for a year. Once I served my time, I came back.
Like how you called served my time.
Right. I had to take some time off and mature, as they say. Came back to Auburn, finished up, graduated with a degree in sociology. I had an academic advisor who really took to me, and she really had a positive impact on my life as far as helping me explore who I was and what I would be good at. Initially came to Auburn as an aviation major, so I flew. I still have quite a few flight hours, and I'm looking to start flying again this year soon. I enjoy it. I wanted to fly for DHL. I wanted to fly cargo, so then I figured I would just go ahead and try to work from them and kind of work my way up and establish a relationship with that company. But as life has it, I ended up going a different direction. Calculus is not a good thing. I'm not really good at math. Physics, I'm not really good at physics. So with that being said, it was hard to get through aviation without those two things. Those were the two classes that really set me back as far as my GPA goes. And then I came back. And again, it goes back to the perseverance that we talked about before, is when you leave, oftentimes people say, well, you're not going to finish up, you're going to get caught up in the Atlanta lifestyle. But I still had my mind set up that I did want a degree. Came back to Auburn, finished up in sociology, worked in retail for a while, did not like that. Decided I wanted to do something that was positive, because when I was in retail, because I had a degree, I worked in management and upper management. So oftentimes I was putting out fires and nobody really ever calls the manager for something positive. Decided that I wanted to change careers, applied at what is currently Max Fitness. They had a position open for selling training to the new clients. Did that for 2 years and then became a personal trainer.
So you're training. So I mean, and this is where we are. I mean, that kind of almost gets you up to not 100% present day, but it gets you to the beginning steps of this journey that you're on now.
Right.
But earlier you said that, working out, playing basketball with your buddies, stuff like that, like definitely going to gym was something that was. Has this always been a part of your life, just exercising and working out on a regular basis? Was this an outlet for you, or where'd that come from?
It's always been part of something that I've been a part of. Between my sports background, I had some really good coaches in my life, and I really enjoyed the experience and the way they not only poured into me, but my teammates. So I wanted to be able to be in an environment like that. I grew up a little bit as a gym rat. Constantly, I was always active, and I wanted to excel, and I wanted to push myself physically, and with that comes pushing yourself mentally. So that was the pivot that I had, where I also wanted to explore how to not only create a better performance physically for people, but also mentally. So then while I was training, I decided to go back to school and get my master's in psychology. And the reason being is because oftentimes when I was talking to people and trying to find out how I could help them reach their goals, it was something that they were dealing with psychologically that was keeping them from reaching their goals. And it oftentimes was something traumatic that happened in their life. A death was common between a child or a spouse, a divorce, or something. It was something traumatic that happened where people then shifted how they felt about themselves and started down a darker path than they were on before. And then they now want to turn it around, but they don't know how. So I was also that person who was that unbiased opinion where they could talk to me freely, but not feel judged. So a lot of times when I first started training, it was a lot of people just talking to me rather than doing the actual workout.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to be able to serve people better in that capacity and help them manage their mind, and if they could, then they can manage their bodies.
Yeah, no, and I love that, man. You know, it's funny. Not only have I worked as a chef most of my career, but I'm also a former Marine, and some of my closest friends, we built a bond or forged a bond in our trials, in our struggles, and it's because it's in those places that you're comfortable with. What I found was we were more comfortable with kind of letting our vulnerability be shown because we knew the guy next to me had my back.
Right.
And so I was good. Like I could be a little scared, but he'd be like, "Hey man, I got your back and you're okay."
Right.
And the same thing I think is kind of what you're saying is in these places when you're working out and we're training one of your clients, it's like, hey, they may be scared or unsure that they can move that bit of weight or do that exercise.
Right.
But you're able to give them that just enough confidence so then it starts pulling back those layers and allows them to kind of really own it. That's cool, man.
That's spot on.
And I love that approach. I think that's why I wanted you to have you on this podcast, because to me, that is one of the perfect pictures of just, hey, an everyday guy living a life and saying, hey, I'm going to just do this a little bit differently because I believe in what I do. Right. And because of, the purpose that you feel that God put on your heart and said, hey, look, I've designed Chappy this way, Right. So let me ask you this. I mean, so how does your faith play into some of this, if you don't mind me asking to get into that?
No, that's great. I feel like if you are exploring yourself and finding where your talents and your passions intersect with the way in which you can make a living, mm-hmm. then as you take that step, then God will provide that next step in front of you. Mm-hmm. That is you just gotta have the faith that your foot will land. It's like walking in the dark. Your foot will land. So for me, there was a lot that got me to this point, and there was a lot that my story, even like being at Auburn, and I'll give you a few examples. I tried to leave Auburn. I tried to transfer to 4 different schools, and it never worked out. And then another time I tried to leave Auburn and move to different cities, and each time I got accepted for the job because I was qualified, only to get a call 2 to 3 days later that they had dissolved the position. And so in that moment, when that happens, I realized that this is really where God is going to have me, is to be in Auburn, because these doors are not really opening. With that being said, the way that I ended up at the High Five through word of mouth and the equipment, once I got into this location, people started reaching out to me and donating equipment without me even saying that I was opening a gym. So that to me is a testament to my faith as far as me being in the right place, serving the right people, and doing God's work. I was in Jacksonville about 3 years ago for New Year's, and a gentleman that was staying at the hotel that I was at stopped me, and he asked me if he could talk to me for a moment, and I said sure. He started telling me about the things that was going on in his marriage, and he said, I just feel like God has me to talk to you because I've been carrying this stuff around in my heart, and I need somebody just to talk to. And I was walking into the hotel, hadn't even checked in yet, and this gentleman, as we crossed paths, stopped me, and he says, he said, I can feel that you are doing great work in people's lives. And he was like, I don't know why I feel convicted just to kind of let you know what's going on. We sat in the lobby and talked for an hour before I even had a chance to check in. I still had my bags with me. And after he said what he had to say, he made the decision that he needed to make to help his marriage. And it was some things that he was trying to personally deal with and own to be a better husband to his wife.
Yeah.
And even in that moment, he said, wherever you are, your place is a lighthouse to people that are in need. And that really stuck with me. And I said, you know, what's funny is that the amazing thing about the high five is that, and this is, you know, poor marketing on my part, but also a testament to the building, is that there are no signs out front, and that's something I'll own. I have been saying for years that I'm going to put more signage out, but yet people keep finding me. And the people who find me are the people that are supposed to be here. And I feel like I am that beacon in this town of Auburn, that when people need a talk therapy gym or something that is beyond the usual gym where you just have equipment to work out, but you also have aspects that you want to work on and grow in, then they come to the high five. So that is a big part of why, you know, again, I lean into my faith as it relates to being in the place that I'm supposed to be in.
And that's awesome. I love that. And I love, I wrote down your talk therapy gym. I'm like, man, I love that. I mean, it's how I look at my garage at home.
Right.
You know, even now, I have a client that I've been working with for a little over a year, and there's been some things, and it's been awesome to see the progress that he's made. Right. But one of the things he's always kept coming to me is like, man, I really want to become more disciplined and exercise more. And I'm like, I've created programs for him. I've kind of given him little things. Right. I've said, hey, reach out to this guy or whatever it was. And finally the other day I said, man, why don't you and I just start rucking? And he goes, really? I'm like, yeah. Instead of meeting every 2 weeks at a coffee house and talking through everything, let's go put a ruck on. Let's hit the trail.
That's great.
And it was awesome. And we went and hit the trail last week, and it was a great afternoon. Had some amazing breakthroughs, but it was just what you're talking about.
Right.
So I'm gonna backtrack just a little bit, because I want to kind of hear the story, and I want to make sure our listeners hear, you know, the high points of that story, or maybe the low points of the story, because those are always really the best points.
Right.
Of, hey, Chappy's at Max, in sales, probably not your most exciting thing that you were doing there, but that transition of, hey, how you got from Max Fitness and doing that to now here I am with High Five Fitness and Auburn Life Coaching.
Right, okay. So yes, I was in sales. I went through various managers at Max. As that was happening, some of them were really salesy. It didn't matter how you got the sales you want, they just wanted to sell. I oftentimes wanted to connect a little bit more with the person that was in front of me, not so much sell them a product if they didn't really think the product would change their life. With that being said, there was times when I would sell a person a personal training package, and they only would agree to it if I was going to be their trainer. That happened more and more and more, and as that happened, then I requested, it was considered a demotion, but for me it was a promotion. I wanted to become a trainer. So I switched positions, they brought somebody else in sales, I started training, and that's when I actually really started to connect with my clients. As that happened, I grew as a trainer, more and more clients, to the point I was there literally from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. with a 1 hour break from 1 p.m. to 2. My schedule was full. And then it transitioned because I realized the people were there for me, not for Max. And at that point, I decided that I didn't want my future to be dependent on a perceived performance by my supervisors. My performance is by my actual supervisors, who are my clients. My clients are my bosses. Like, they can hire me or fire me at any point. So with that being said, I decided more so that I wanted to be an entrepreneur and step away from Max. So me and another trainer at the time that was at Max started another gym called Metrics Fitness, which is still operating. We were business partners. I was at Metrics for roughly 2.5 years, and then separated from Metrics, came to the High Five. I've been here for almost 5.5 years now. And at first, when I left Metrics, I was training out at Duck Sanford Park. I did that for about 6 months, and I was really honored that my clients stuck with me, even training outside, and that really meant a lot to me. And then when I did find a place, the way I found this place is there was a woman whose dogs I was checking on, and her neighbor came outside and reintroduced himself. It was somebody I had known from years back, and he said, there is a place that's available over off the corner of Wire and Webster Road if you're looking for a space to train. And that's how I found this space. So I contacted the people who manage this property. It was available, and found equipment, and then from there everything really just took off.
That's awesome, man. And I remember you telling me the story when we were doing kind of like a pre-workup to this whole thing,
Right.
and you were telling me the story about just the flooring and how
Right.
how that happened, just completely.
So the story behind the flooring is I got in the space, and one of the first things you kind of want to fit a gym out with is flooring. It was just going to be concrete floors at first. I found a guy on Craigslist who had flooring available, but he was just north of the Miami Fort Lauderdale area. He was north of Fort Lauderdale. So I contacted him and I asked him, I said, you have the flooring that I'm looking for? And he said, I'm closing my gym. So we were kind of testing each other out because, on Craigslist, you don't know who is, fraudulent or not.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually we exchanged phone numbers. So he was like, you're in Auburn, Alabama, and you can't find any flooring between there and 12 hours. And I said, I honestly cannot, and that's why I'm contacting you. And he said, I will be here tomorrow for you to pick up this flooring, but I hope you're serious. And I was like, well, I'm kind of hoping you're serious because I'm going to go rent a U-Haul when I get off the phone with you and come get this flooring. I said, so he was 12 hours from me. I told him I was leaving at midnight that night. Put me down there right at noon his time. Well, 1 technically because it's a time change. So initially, he was asking for $2,000 for the flooring, and he came way off that price if he said it since I was driving so far. So I told him, I said, look, this is all the money that I have. This is what I can do. By the time I fill up my truck, rent a U-Haul, and drive down there and drive back, I was like, can you work with this? And he said, sure. So I got off the phone, went to U-Haul, hooked up the trailer to my truck, set my alarm for 11:30 p.m., out the door by 12 midnight, headed south in Florida. At that time, a hurricane was coming up to Florida, and so all the traffic coming back the other direction was back to back to back. And I'm coming down 75, and then I got to cut across to I-95. And so he texted me, he said, are you on your way? So I sent him a picture, and it's just me and like these utility trucks are the only ones southbound. And it's funny, and he was like, I guess you really are on your way. I was like, yeah. He's like, that way like this isn't just some random picture I pulled off the internet. So like, because all the traffic is headed northbound to escape this hurricane. He said, okay. So he said he was just gonna ride the hurricane out. So I go down there, pick up the flooring, we load it up. I turn around and start heading back to Auburn. About 4 a.m., I went as far as I could go, and I was still easily quite a few hours from Auburn. So I took a nap at a rest station, woke back up, came back to Auburn, and made it back the next day. Started laying the floor. I called a buddy of mine. He came, helped me unload the truck, the U-Haul, so I could get it back. And then he went on about his way. So I started laying out the flooring. And the miraculous thing that happened is as I laid out this flooring, I didn't have to cut any of it. I didn't have to rearrange any of it. And the amazing thing to me is that, so I have a strip of turf, and it goes wall to wall without me having to modify it. I have another strip of turf that ends where the rubber meets. So again, I didn't have to modify it for the space. So I used all that the guy gave to me without having to modify it at all. And every time I tell that story, like, it gives me chills, because once I finished laying the floor, had nothing left over, didn't have to modify or cut anything because I had my tools in case I had to cut or modify. It really was confirmation for me being in the space that I needed to be in.
Man, I love that story. That's why I wanted you to tell it, because when you told it to me, a couple weeks ago when I came up here to work out with you, and I'm like looking at the gym and I'm doing my workout, and I'm just like, it's just another way that God just kind of set his hand on and said, hey, I'm confirming what I've called you to do, Chappy.
Right.
And to me, that's the heart behind this podcast for me is how do how do I share the stories of everyday guys that have made decisions to go, hey, I'm just going to do something a little bit different. You decided to build your business a little bit differently than most strength coaches. And I'm not knocking, because I'm sure there's some other strength coaches that probably do some stuff like this, but like a lot of the ones I know, I think they do it unintentionally, and you're doing it very intentionally on the other side of it, and which is what's great, because our common friend Sarah, who connected us, and definitely got to give us a shout out to Sarah. She's got a podcast. I'll make sure to tag it, but that's the way she explained it. Right. That's the way she shared her journey here as well, and so it's just been really kind of cool to kind of hear your story, live it some with you, but at the same time, see it in person when you come in here and you see exactly what he was talking about when you look at the floor and how it's laid out and everything. So talk to me about some of the common obstacles, some of the things that you really see that you've been able to, like, I want to hear some wins and losses of Chappy and High Five Fitness and your clients. I want people to know that, hey, that there's wins and this is real. Like this is what makes the difference. Not only for yourself, maybe what you've overcome, but then, hey, what are some things your clients, and obviously respect their privacy. Right. But hey, like, let's hear.
To go back, as far as intention, when I went back to school while I was training, a lot of times the common question is why are you not getting a master's in kinesiology? Like, why are you not getting a master's in like exercise science? And even when I told my professors when I was trying to enroll, they were asking the same thing. And I really feel and felt that wasn't my path. Like the kinesiology trainer, the exercise science, but I wanted to be more of a mental health coach as well as a physical health coach. And the psychology part, speaking about doing it different, was, I feel like, the key important part for me. As far as wins and losses for me, the most recent thing I can say and think of is the pandemic in 2020 really kind of shook what's next, because at the time when like that, for those first like 3 to 4 months from like January to March, when there was a lot of unknown in the social distancing and the wiping down of everything like groceries and just no confined spaces, no human contact. So one of the first things that was going, or they were saying to stay away from, was gyms. And to get that kind of news, so when you work in the gym industry, your busy time of year is that January through March. So you're losing your busiest time of year because of this pandemic that's happening. And oftentimes in this industry, you build so much momentum there and carry that throughout the rest of the year. Especially living in a college town, you get New Year's resolutions, you get wedding season coming up, so there's a lot of people who get married in the summer. You got people graduating and then they want to look better than they did. You're coming off of football season, people put on their freshman 15. So in Auburn, there's an influx beyond just the normal like New Year's resolution people. And then you have this pandemic, and for me, just to be here after all of that, when I've seen so many gyms close and the people that I followed on Instagram that had to close their doors, I am thankful for a landlord who was flexible enough to let me stay here. Also for my clients so this is a beautiful thing also, this story, is even when all that was happening, I had clients of mine who said, I'm not gonna train, but I will keep paying you monthly like I have been, because I don't want you to go under, because you've impacted my life so much. People were like donating just to help me pay my rent, to keep the utilities on, and to stay in the space that I'm in now. And so for me, that was a really beautiful thing. That was a definitive win. And the clients then, my clients now, who have returned, and the new ones that I've picked up along the way, have been a real win for me. So that is the most immediate thing that I can think of as far as like my personal wins. Mm-hmm. As far as my clients, I have quite a few who have come such a long way from where they were to where they are, and they're mentally, from the amount that they had doubted themselves in their ability that they would never be able to do X, Y, and Z. I have clients that were like, I'll never be able to walk a mile, and that are now walking 3 miles a day. There are clients, I have an elderly population, and anybody that knows me, one of the first things you're always going to do when you come in here is you're going to get up off the floor, and it's because it's something that we neglect as people as we get older. And I have elderly people to date that thank me for that. I have a gentleman, an elderly gentleman he's in his 80s. He said he was cutting his grass and he fell in his backyard while cutting his grass. And he said if I did not teach him how to get up off the ground, he would have had to crawl around on his stomach to his front yard and then pick himself up on the back of his car, which he's done before. He said, I did that before I met you. And my doctor, the only reason I'm here is my doctor told me that I need to start working out more, and then I heard about you through him and other people. And then you taught me how to get up off the ground, and now I don't have to crawl to a chair, to a box, to a bed, to a car whenever I fall. He said that has changed my life. And he said that you never know when your fall was your last fall, because it's Alabama heat, you're cutting your grass during the summertime, and you hope you can make it, you hope somebody can find you, you hope you can reach your phone. Then I have other clients. I have one other one who fell getting out of the bathtub, in the same type of story. He had one of those stand-up tubs. He fell, and he has caregivers, but at that time his caregiver did not hear him, and he got up off the floor himself and didn't have to call her. So those have been real testaments and real wins for my clients. I have clients who have doubted themselves in a lot of capacities and their abilities to do things even as it's related to work, a very physical, demanding environment, who now find those jobs to be easy.
I love that, man. And it's funny. I'm really glad that you told those stories. So I'm 51, so I'm starting second half, right?
Right.
And I'm really trying to take a completely different perspective on how I train, knowing that I'm moving forward, I'm going to be getting older. I'm closer to 80 and 90 than I was 20 years ago.
Right.
And so one of the goals that I have that at 90 and 95 is to have the ability to get up from the ground using a single point of contact.
Right.
So
right.
One arm.
Exactly.
And I'd never really thought about it, how important that is, until I was the one, my wife and I just, we've been a caregiver for my father-in-law he recently passed, but we were his caregiver for a long time, going in and helping my mother-in-law and picking him up and moving him. And I was just like, man, like, I know I could see how he felt because of that.
Right.
And I was just like, I don't want that, not even from my kids, but also I want to be able to know that I can do that. So it's just, It's neat that your training and even what you're doing already is impacting people in that direction. So I was thinking about this question when you were telling that, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to ask it, but it's what have you seen you have clients that come in, hey man, I want to get in better shape, right? I want this, here's a picture of this guy, here's a picture of this girl, this is what I want to look like, right? And you're like, all right, great, this is the gym, that's what I do.
Right.
But let's talk about what happens really behind the scenes when you're like, hey, okay, well, we're going to work out, and then they start opening up, and you start doing what it is that you do, what makes you set apart from the other people in this area that are training or life coaching and stuff like that.
Correct.
I want to hear that. That's the magic stuff that you're doing,
Correct. So as cliche as it sounds, I always start with the why behind what you're doing, and what is your resolve in that why, and that oftentimes will dictate how engaged you are as it relates to your health and wellness. The thing I work a lot against is the marketing aspect of things. So the common thing when people come in is they say, hey, I want to lose weight. And so I asked them, what is your weight related to what your goals are? So why is your weight the metric for that? Why is that dictating what it is that you want to achieve? And oftentimes it's something related to either that's something they saw on social media or a magazine cover, and they just want to lose weight. So I explained to them, and it's, maybe very basic, but I say, you lose weight every time you go pee. Does that mean that you're any healthier? And
you just want to pee all day, right?
Yeah, right. And it's like, well, no. And then I give the examples of like fighters, and they take things, diuretics and stuff like that to cut weight. And it's like, but does that mean that you're any healthier at this point? Can you do anything any better that you couldn't now that you have lost this weight? And so then they think about it, and it's like, no. So then it's like, then what is it that you're really trying to achieve? What's your goal here? And then you start getting into the stories of like, well, I have this 8-year-old son, and he beat me up the stairs, and I tried to catch him, and I couldn't catch my breath. My mom recently moved in with me, and I was trying to transition her from the bed into the wheelchair, and I really struggled, and I can't get her in the car. So I think if I lose weight, then I can help her better. And it's like, well, is losing weight gonna help you do that? Or do you wanna be stronger to be able to help you? Do you wanna move better? And then it becomes okay, you know what? I wanna be able to move better. I wanna be able to help her. I wanna be able to lift. So, or it's sometimes health-related problems, and there is a component that the weight is attributed to that. But that becomes a conversation as it relates to your body fat percentage and increasing your cardio. So then, what is the reason you want to do that? Is it doctor ordered, or do you want a better quality of life? Oftentimes it comes down to you want a better quality of life. But what does that better quality of life really look like to you? And we all have individual goals. So when we frame it in a way that's very generic, because we've seen this on social media, oh, I lost 15 pounds in a week, or like the same thing, take these and you can lose fat burners and all that kind of stuff, you can lose X number of pounds. Does that again really mean that you're healthier? So what it comes down to, and that's why I say like I'm more of a health coach, let's focus on the health reasons, the why behind what you want to do, and then let's move forward. So then I start kind of pulling that apart as far as what has been your model of health. What does that look like for you? What does a healthy version of you look like? When also was the last time you felt like you were in the best shape of your life? That question right there opens up endless possibilities. And that question right there also was a big catalyst for the reason I went back and went to school for psychology, because that's when the people say either, usually high school was a very common answer, or college sometimes. And it's like, well, what happened? So there's these various, and then the generic answer is usually life, but then there's other usually things that happen. They moved here, they took this desk job, they took a job that, well, like a sales job where they're driving a lot and they're constantly sitting. And then that is also, I start eating this way because I'm constantly on the road and I'm doing this and I'm moving this way. So then we start pulling all of that apart. So if you are now driving and eating in this kind of way, what do you have to look forward to that is creating this new goal, this new version of yourself? And then it's like, well, eventually I want to start having kids, or I want to get married, or I want to do this, or I'm going on a cruise, or whatever that goal is. So then when you start keeping that goal in front of the person, then that why really sets in a little more, and then people really know why they're here.
So, and I'm glad that you used the word why, because I think that's a great question. The why is a well under asked question.
Right.
I mean, anytime I'll have a conversation, I'm working on something, I'm always first to go, well, so why are we doing that?
Right.
Right. Why is that like that? And it's not a question to give them doubt, but it's just a clarification.
Correct.
But what I'd like to hear, and I think, and is how are you tying that why, or asking the question why, back to, which is the neat thing that you do is the life coaching side of this is like,
right.
Hey, because usually, or I have found there's usually something else. There's usually some type of story, for lack of a better word, some type of wound,
right? Okay.
From an experience that they've had in their life at some point. And how are you getting into that? Like, How are you going, hey man, like, I'm glad that you're here and you want to lose weight.
Right.
or you want to get healthier because this life experience has happened.
Okay.
But there's a why that they started, you know. I mean, I can speak for myself, you know.
Okay.
I know for a fact, like, I was, my journey started, I was 240, right?
Right.
You know, I was not in good shape. I was chasing my career. I was at the top of my career. I was doing great, right?
Right.
But I wasn't eating good, wasn't sleeping well,
Right.
wasn't taking care of my body.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because I was pursuing something that was not really fulfilling for me.
Right.
And so I was trying other things to fill in the gaps that didn't fill.
Right. Correct.
But once I started unpacking all that, then I realized, oh, hey, you know what? And now I don't miss any of that, and my life's a lot more full.
Correct.
But it's because I figured out why I'm stepping, and ultimately figured out what my personal why is.
Okay.
You know.
So, like, using that example, what was the point in which you realized you needed to make a change?
That's a great question, man. I'm trying to think.
Was there a point in which, because what happens oftentimes that I have seen is that change is going to happen. You know, I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to do it next week. I'm going to do it next month. I'll wait until January. But at some point, there's a point where you look and say, today is that day.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that brought you into the high five today, that today is that day? What is the day? What was the thing that happened? And so, like, oftentimes people don't have an immediate answer, and then they come back and we follow up on that.
Yeah.
So what is it that happened that made you take action?
What's that look like with you and a client? Yeah, man.
Yeah,
that's what I want people, because to me, I want people, if people hear that, then I'm
Right.
like, hey, man, because I'll tell you, like, if, I'll say it right here, like, if this is where you're going,
Correct.
and if this resonates with you and you're listening to this, then you guys need to get in touch with this guy.
Right. Okay.
Like, you
Yeah,
need to
thank
follow
you.
up with Chappy and go, hey, man, like there's, like, it's more than just, hey, I'm getting stronger and I look great and I got 6-pack abs.
Right.
Like,
Correct.
hey, I work out all the time.
Correct.
I don't have 6-pack abs. I have never had 6-pack abs, and I don't think I ever will.
Correct.
I like food.
Correct.
And that's probably one of the reasons I work out so hard, is because I do like food.
Right.
But how are you walking your clients through that process? And what does that look like?
All right, so that is multi-layered. So the first thing is to be able to give them the grace that oftentimes they don't give themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They look in the mirror and they see something that they don't necessarily like, and then, as the saying goes, comparison is the thief of joy. So you're looking in the mirror and now you're comparing it to your friends and these superstars and these people. You know, the guys are looking at these other celebrities who look like the quote-unquote model of perfection as it relates to health and wellness, and we try to emulate that. But give yourself grace and give yourself balance. And oftentimes I tell my clients that it's all about balance, moderation, variation. So I'm not the trainer who is going to put you on a very strict diet. I feel like we want to enjoy the things in life. Sometimes when we travel, we want to experience that place we travel to through its food, and that's okay. So if you go and you get the lobster mac and cheese, enjoy that. But at the same time, when you come in here, work to the ability that you feel comfortable, that is good for you. So the thing is I see oftentimes people try to take the diets and the plans and the programs that have worked for these celebrities and various other people and try to make it work for themselves, when that is not their lifestyle. Their life has other demands, and other people have access to things that we may not necessarily have access to. So let's find something that works within you. And then that starts the journey of asking yourself the questions. Why am I doing this? What was it that made me decide to take action? And the self-exploration of what does my journey look like, not this other person's journey. What does my self-acceptance look like? And for when people start to accept themselves, and I show them that they are worthy of being accepted, I think is when the change happens. And so I challenge them in a way that makes them go a little bit deeper than I just want to be healthier. I want 6-pack abs. So what is the cause? So, I mean, what does six-pack abs represent to you? And then oftentimes it's because of what we're exposed to visually through social media, or we're told through some sort of standard that is the pinnacle of health. If you are doing it for a competition or something like that, then that's a different answer. But if you are doing it just because you feel like that's what it looks like, because I oftentimes use the example, and I speak in a lot of analogies. I also reference books a lot, but there are people who are bigger who are still very much in shape. And I use the football for example. You have offensive linemen, especially when a hurry up no huddle was very popular, that you have these 300-pound linemen who are running up and down the field in the South, and they're very much in shape. And so just because you don't look this part doesn't mean you're not in shape. And so that kind of registers with people. So pulling apart what caused you to take action, what is it that is causing you to feel this way, and then what was it that redirected you in a way that you're not comfortable with yourself, then those conversations are the ones that impact the most.
Yeah.
And just to give you a quick example, a woman who is now motivated, and so the catalyst, for her to make a change is she could not keep up with her child at this event going up and down the stairs, and her fear of being that far away from her child, and then realizing that this is where you are and this is what you want. I want to be able to run with my child. I want to be able to play with my child without getting winded. That means more time, more connection with him. When was the last time you were able to do all that? Well, it was actually before I got pregnant. So we're looking at like 8 years ago. So what changed? Well, I used to have time, and now I don't have that time, but now I'm making that time for myself. So, and that is just a kind of a very general example of the answers to those questions. When that person comes in, I just want to be in better shape. You start picking it apart. When were you in the better shape? Well, that was 8 years ago. Well, what happened? I got pregnant. What made you come in here today? I couldn't keep up with my child at this event. We went to this event together, mommy, son. I couldn't keep up with him. And that was the moment I said, I need to do something to be able to keep up with my child.
So what do you think are the biggest reasons your clients, I don't say customers, that's not right, but your clients,
Right.
And they're probably more than that, knowing how you interact and talk with them and just the relationships that you're building with them here, are the reasons they're staying. They're keeping up and staying focused on this mission, because it's hard. Like,
it is
an 8-year downtime. I mean,
right.
I know for a fact when like I said, I was 240.
Correct.
Like, you look at me now and I'm 195, and you're like, 240 where? And I'm like, 240 6 years ago.
Right. Okay.
And it was some of the same stuff. Like, my son was a lot younger, so this was 10 years ago. So he's 21 this year, so he would have been 11.
Okay.
And I'm like, I want to be able to do things and run around, and I was working too much, and so I needed to make a change.
Correct.
And I just did.
So I have a running joke in the gym. I say people come for the conversation and they stay for the workout. The thing that keeps people here is a space in which they feel, it's that in-between space. They don't have to go home, but they don't have to be at work, and they can come and just kind of let their hair down, kick their shoes off. They don't feel a lot of pressure to perform or look a certain way. They don't feel a lot of pressure they just show up. In the family aspect that has been built here, we all look for each other. We all hold each other accountable. Almost everyone that works out here does not want to work out in an environment that they feel shamed in. So they don't want to work out in like a big gym. They want a more private setting. But then with that being said, they come in here and they connect. That's their tribe. And so they have found a tribe without trying to find a tribe, because they didn't want a tribe. And now they have found other like-minded people. So they come for the accountability of the other people who work out here, but then they also come for the flexibility that happens, because I have 2 heavy bags here. So sometimes there's just like, I'm going through this with the significant other. Can I just hit the bag for 20 minutes and leave? And it's like, sure, let's do it. What's going on? I don't want to talk about it. Okay, that's fine. But then after they hit the bag, they were like, hey, can we talk? And I'm like, yeah, well, you know, what's going on? And so giving them perspective, but also giving them that outlet, and a healthy outlet where they leave feeling better than they came in, is something that is hard to replace. So that's, you know, a lot of my clients, that's the reason they stay, is because they're able to connect with other people who are experiencing similar life journeys as they are, and being able to be heard, but then also to express themselves, and a listening ear.
So, yeah, it's, you know, I love fitness for that reason, or exercising for that reason, whatever that looks like. Walking, like you said, there was a guy who couldn't walk a mile and I was walking 3.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. And I love that journey because of that. But it impacts every aspect of your life. It helps give you mental clarity. It helps burn off energy that comes from anxiety or anger or whatever. And then you're able to come back on the other side, and then you feel accomplished. So now you're feeling good about yourself that, hey, I did something.
Right.
You know, I can actually check something off on my box. Even if the rest of the day absolutely sucked, and I just spent 20 minutes pounding a heavy bag with my boss's face on it. Hopefully not, but you know.
Right, exactly.
But it's just, it is so, I mean, it's so true. I mean, I am very much an end of the day workout guy. I don't mind working out in the morning, but I would rather into the day, because it allows me just kind of decompress. I either put a podcast on or crank the music up, just whatever I'm feeling. Sometimes it's just me and the weights, and me getting really mad at my trainer that he, you know, programmed something that, like, I'm looking at it going, this is gonna really, really hurt today. But I'm gonna do it. And feel better afterwards. Maybe 20 minutes afterwards. Oh, hey, there we go. Little notification there. But I just, it's neat that you've been able to really create this environment, and not only leverage it to help people get healthy physically, but help them get healthy mentally. And so what has that been like? And I know we're getting close. We're at 52 minutes right now, so I want to make sure that I honor your time and stuff like that. And Sarah is probably going to be like, holy mackerel, this thing's long. Y'all could have done 2.
We could have, we can definitely make this part 1 of.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. But I do have one last question.
Let's do it.
So here we are. We're on the backside of COVID, backside of this pandemic, right?
Correct.
Still, without a doubt, there are some things going on. But, you know, you said that this was a hard thing going, you know, it hits gym hard. I get it. Hey, look, I was a profiteer for that, because I now have a full gym at my house because of COVID. I was able to get all the things I need. But when it happened, like, I took some plywood, I made a box, and I took 2 2x4s and a 1-inch piece of pipe and made a pull-up bar. And I did a ton of burpees and pull-ups and box jumps, and that was it. But then as I was able to find pieces, I was able to build it. And now, like, I don't go to a gym anymore. I don't have to. But I like to invite my buddies over, and usually that's what happens when I meet with a client. I'll be like, hey, why don't you come over to the house? And I'm working out this afternoon, and we'll have very similar conversations and just kind of hear what's going on. And because he's not thinking about, oh, I gotta tell this guy the perfect answer to these questions. I'm like, no, bro, just pick up the weight and move it. And I'll ask you a question while you're not really thinking about it. But so how has post-COVID been for you and your business? Unfortunately, you've probably seen some uptick, but at the same time, like, talk about that success, because I know there's got to be some really cool metrics in there that say, hey, look, like, it makes a difference.
Post-COVID has had a positive impact on multiple levels. One, being able to reconnect, and even just us doing this right here, you know, being able to sit and have this conversation, whereas a lot of people were sheltering in place for so long, that people now being able to find a place to reconnect and kind of find another social situation has been really good. For life coaching, so one of there are 3 real areas that I focus in on life coaching. career and vocation is one of them. Dating is another one, and then health and wellness. And all three of those look different on the other side of COVID. So during COVID, and if you look at the news right now, they're saying we're in a time of like the Great Resignation, and a lot of people are looking for help and all that kind of stuff. And it's because a lot of people have shifted. They were just doing stuff as a job, but not doing what they love. Mm-hmm. So as a life coach, from a life coach perspective, I have really been helping people discover who they are again, and not this version of themselves that they had created to fulfill a job. So there have been a lot of people who were just doing this and they got used to it and they were good at it, but it's not what they wanted to do. And the money was good and the benefits were good and it gave me this, and this, but it's not really who I am at my core. So, but you've created this persona that you can't really separate from who that actual person is and the passion that that person had. So then you're now in a space where like you stepped away from this job because of COVID, you're working at home, you're taking these Zoom calls, but that allowed you to reconnect with yourself in a way that's like, what do I want to explore? And then through the internet and social media, and that's why I feel like there was an uptick in YouTube and TikTok, because people now are gravitating towards the things that they naturally had an inclination to gravitate to before, but they had pushed down because of the demands that were placed upon them by this other career. So helping people reconnect with themselves in that capacity. I think dating has looked a little different post-COVID as well. So people now are trying to date in a more healthy way rather than just fulfilling a human connection because we were sheltering in place for so long that you would take almost anything that would come your way. Anybody, you're just reaching out, just casting a line, and whatever came up on that line, you were responding to. And let's look at those habits that have been formed over the last 2 years and find healthier alternatives to find what you're actually looking for. Like, what are you looking for? Not just a human connection, but what in that human connection are you looking for? So that again, it goes back to the what and the whys. So I have had people come and explore that option a lot. So my coaching has really done a lot more. People are looking to reconnect, but then there's also been a big play on mental health. And so some people don't necessarily want the clinical setting, sitting in somebody's office, talking to their clinician. They like this environment where they can kind of come, again, talk therapy gym, they can work out, we can go for walks, we can have a very formal but informal conversation and in a way that leads to healthier habits, healthier lifestyles, and a healthier person.
I love that, man. It's one of the things that you said there, but I just want to ask you your kind of thoughts on this. And you made a comment, people felt that they were stuck in a job.
Right.
And so what's that like, unpacking the fact that, hey, like some of the guys I'll work with, they'll feel like, I have to do this. I'm like, well, why do you feel like you have to?
Right.
And so I had started unpacking this whole nother level of what are the fears, what are those wounds, what are those stories, that those lies that you believe. Okay. Well, if I don't do this, this is, I'm not gonna, fear I'm gonna miss out on something maybe, or what? I mean, are those some of the conversations that you're having to have in these areas, and what's that like?
Being in a college town, oftentimes the people that I talk to, when it comes down to it, their fear is oftentimes letting their parents down. There is a lot of social pressure as far as what success looks like, and that oftentimes looks like something material. So just because you went to college and you graduated in this field, now I have to live this lifestyle. So there's a lot of people, especially in Auburn, with it being a engineering school, there are a lot of engineers here. They feel like they have to make.
It's a well-to-do town.
Right, it is.
Like,
right, it is.
Like there is a level of there is definitely a higher level of income in this town.
For sure.
So, I mean, it's a lot to live up to.
It is. And so you want to live up to that. So now I'm in the field that allows me to live up to that, but it doesn't allow me to live my truth.
Oh, I thought was this learned nutrition as well?
No, it's no worries. It's next
Okay,
door.
thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. But it doesn't allow them to live their truth. So they want to do the thing that they want to do, but they also don't think they can reach the lifestyle they want to live if they do what they want to do.
I love that, man. So, I mean, so I have, and you've heard me refer to it as well. I have I don't want to say a leadership consulting company, but it is definitely a performance and transition kind of coaching company myself. And it's called the Forge Leader. And our tagline is who you are and what to do next. A Forge Leader knows who they are and what to do next.
Right.
And so many times I find like people know what they're supposed to be doing, but have no idea who they are.
Right.
And they don't realize they really need to answer that question before they can get to that, because that just gives them clarity. It gives the thing that you've been talking about all day, which is the why behind that. I mean, for me, when I look back and I look at why I've started this podcast and why I got into coaching, and it's to help men become the leaders they're called to be, to challenge and encourage them to become and equip them to become the men and the leaders that they're called to be. When I say leaders, I even don't even like using that word, because it has this connotation of, that means I'm a leader of business. No, that means you're a good husband. Right?
Yeah, right.
A good dad.
Right.
Because you're leading those people. And if you have, unless you're living under a rock somewhere and have no social interactions with anybody, you're a leader because you have influence.
Right.
And so it's without a doubt, I mean, it's what I think about every single day. It's what I don't want to say I dream about, but it's what drives me in the mornings to get up. And it's what breaks my heart when I see men, fathers, husbands not leading and living the life that they're called to be, that they're created to be, that they're enabled to be. And I even pray this, like, God, break my heart for what breaks yours. And he, without a doubt, has burdened me with that. And I'm able to look back at my past and see why that's inside of me, and that's really kind of the process we use. So, what's next for you? Career, personal development journey. Like, what's next for you as we wrap this up?
So what I've been working on this year is just really separating the life coaching from the gym aspect. That is my biggest task. As that happens, I'm going to continue to live and lean into the life coaching a lot more. I feel like that's what's needed in this community and in this world at this time. Is people need an outlet and some guidance and exploration of themselves to become a better version of themselves, or fulfill the version of themselves that they can see, to kind of be that conduit that gives them confidence to reach the version of themselves that they want to achieve. So for me, what's next is really just leaning into that and helping those that I can, as well as I can in health and wellness, and just helping people understand that they can give themselves grace.
Awesome. Well, hey, Chappy, thank you. Is any last things you want to close out before we shut it down?
No, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with you again soon.
Heck yeah, man. Me too. Hey, and with that, we will wrap up today's podcast. Thank you for tuning in to the Trailblazer Podcast. My hope is that this podcast and episode has shown you that every man has the potential to become a trailblazer and blaze their own trail in life. If you like what you heard today, please take the time to like, follow, and share wherever you listen to the podcast. Also, remember that I do have a consulting and coaching company called the Forge Leader, and as well as I will make sure to put Chappy's links to High Five Fitness and Auburn Coaching in the show notes. So, thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.
I gotta get a better exit.
I feel like that was good.
No, I do too. Now I got a Zoom call in 20 minutes.
Oh, do you? Okay.
I gotta figure out when the hell I'm gonna eat lunch. because
Yeah.
I know that I'm going to work out when I get home, and I've already seen my workout for today, and it's like, oh my God.
Sarah's
Awesome,
gonna get
man.
that and she's gonna be like,
An hour and 4 minutes?
Right.